Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury Interviews. Today we have Derek Young from Derek Young Tourism and Events Marketing. He's a very well known event promoter and marketing guy in Sudbury, and we'll be discussing his journey today. Before we begin, you can find us on Sudstown and join the conversation. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please reach out. Hey, Derek Young, how you doing?
Good, Danny. How are you?
Good. So, what have you been up to?
Just keeping busy, man. Just living the dream, having fun, and yeah, that's really what it's all about. Just having fun and trying to keep busy.
Did you always know that you were going to be like an event marketing person?
Um, you know, I guess it was something I guess sort of by accident that I had fallen into. So, going back to I guess if we want to even just look at high school as an example, right? I was sort of always involved in student government and things along that line, and then as a result of being involved with student government, like very simple things like organizing guest speakers at school or being part of a student food drive, different fundraising events that we'd be doing at the school. So that's I guess kind of where some of it basically started, more so from like an organizing perspective and just sort of getting a taste of those events. And then from there, it sort of led to my college experience. I had enrolled at Cambridge College. I was in the business administration program, and then I was asked to become the chief returning officer for the student government elections at Cambrian. And then that led to me being involved in student government. I taken on a role as chairperson, and my best friend from college, who I'd actually met during that campaign, he was elected as the vice president of social affairs. And earlier in that school year, our student programmer had went on a sabbatical to work with a large concert promotions company out of the United States, and that basically left Kyle to take on the whole social events portfolio on his own without the support of a student programmer. So that's kind of where I just kind of stepped up and worked alongside Kyle to be promoting like frosh weeks, concerts, pub nights, and then as that relationship had grown with Kyle, after college we had still remained really good friends and we're best friends to this date. And a lot of my experience in the event industry I kind of owe it to Kyle. Has Throughout college I kind of became his right hand on some of the stuff and had a lot of fun doing it. And one of the things that we talked about at college was, our motto was keeping it real, and that's one thing that stuck with me for the last 25, 30 years. It's just coming back to those principles. Like even at Cambrian, right? It wasn't what we learned in the textbooks. It was what we learned outside of college by doing that was more beneficial, right? Like at 22 years old, I was president of the student government, and we had a $250,000 budget. Like, what 22-year-old has the experience of managing a
Oh,
$250,000 corporation? You kind of look back on that now, it's like, wow, that was actually pretty cool. So I've always sort of stayed true to that event stuff, and tried to make a go of it as an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, we do struggle. But you just never know what sort of life path is going to take you on. And then outside of college, we continue to do some events together. And then he ended up moving to Guelph, and I stayed behind and just continued to do event stuff. And from there, it sort of led to a variety of different things, whether it be getting involved with the Arts Council or getting involved with the downtown association. Those experiences sort of helped to strengthen my role in the events community. And then that sort of led to festival planning back in like 2008. I'd started the Sudbury Celtic Festival, and tried to do my best with that with the best of intentions. Unfortunately, that ended in 2011. Um, but it was a really valuable experience at the time that sort of led to new opportunities. Working with like organizations like Little Ray's Reptile Zoo, which is like the largest exotic animal rescue in Canada. And then that led to relationships with the Super Dogs and the Knights of Valor. But had it not been for college and Celtic Festival, I would not have had those experiences, and I would not have had the journey that I've been on.
So you mentioned the motto "keeping it real." What does that mean to you?
Well, I think for us, it's just about like just trying to keep things into its perspective and putting in an honest day's work, hard work and perseverance, and at the end of the day, we sort of ended each day with a handshake and like, hey, good day today, and on to tomorrow.
Nice. Did you have a political run at some point? I think I remember you running for office at one point. No.
Yeah, so politically, I ran for city councilor a couple times. Once in 2006, and then in 2010, I decided to go for the gusto and actually put my name on the mayor's ballot. There were 12 candidates on the ballot at that time, and I finished fourth overall. Um, but again, like that was a really good experience. And,
Hmm.
like, but up until that point, there were two veteran counselors, that were running. One was Ted Callahan, and the other was Mayor Rodriguez. And then just out of nowhere, Marianne Matichuk came into the picture, and she just cleaned right up on that particular election. But Marianne and I had developed a friendship after that, and but the whole experience of even running for mayor, right? Like I remember my very first debate, and the headline in the Sudbury Star that day was "Young shines at debate." I'm like, that to me felt really good, like knowing that here it is, I'm standing my ground, I'm debating a 16-year veteran on city council and
Hmm.
a current mayor and former member of federal parliament, and I was standing my own, and I was actually starting to get some good support and some good momentum. um, but Marianne was just very well organized at the time, and she had a message that resonated with the people, and you know became the city's first elected female mayor.
Is that something that still interests you? Do you think, or at some point?
um, I think it is something that is still of interest to me, because again, right, like throughout the event work that I've done, there's always sort of community's always been at the heart of all of that. And that's the one thing that I do like about politics is that you can sort of look at both sides of the story. I've also been one of those guys that kind of works quietly behind the scenes to get things done. Um, so from that perspective, like I look at guys like Jerry Lawhead, right? We were at an event one day, and a lot of people try and encourage Jerry Lawhead to get involved in politics, and Jerry's like, you know what? I'm more effective on the outside, just because you have greater influence on actually helping to shape policies sometimes as opposed to being sitting right at the table. So I think at some point I still do have political aspirations, but it's again, it's going to be finding the right ward, the right time, the right messaging that's going to resonate with the community. Um, but politics now is just so different too, right? Like um, when you just sort of look at what's going on in in the world, with a lot of very strong political views, and how in some ways people may have just become disenfranchised with a system that is broken. And you know it's like even now, right, like I look at, well, I just look at the city as a whole. there are some very interesting things that are happening in our city, and Sudbury sort of in a bit of a resurgence and renaissance kind of idea. You know, like there's so much positive that is going on, like new event center, new library, art gallery. The current mayor is quickly approaching the goal of 200,000 new residents in the city of Sudbury. Um, and those are all good big picture things that are happening, but unfortunately, it's being overshadowed by a lot of realities on the ground and on the street as it relates to, you know, vagrancy and downtown and people wanting to feel comfortable in investing in our city, right? Like, you know, there are new businesses that are coming to the downtown, and it's great to promote that this growth is happening. We've got a vibrant patio program, but you know, unfortunately, the reality is that that's being overshadowed by, and I'm not saying anything out of turn. You just got to take a walk down the street and take a good whiff. You know, like businesses that are invested in the downtown and simple things like urinating on a sidewalk, and the sidewalks
Oh,
reek of urine outside a beautiful patio that someone has invested their heart and soul into, and where's the support for that person, right? um
hmm.
so great, awesome, beautiful patio program, but the reality is we have people that are urinating on our downtown streets. The streets reek of urine, and there's no bathroom. And businesses, when we talk about being open for business, many downtown businesses have decided to lock the door, and you have to ring a doorbell to get customer service. Right? Like
Wow.
that was stuff that we used to do after midnight when the stores would close because you had a 24-hour convenience store, right? But that was fine after 12 midnight for the safety of the store worker. But now, like, when you have businesses that are leaving the downtown, that don't want to be downtown, that are paying double the rent just so they can have a better experience, um, you know, all the wonderful things that are happening, right? Like we talked about building an Elder Street Greenway, and how that would be a wonderful attraction to the downtown and have like this downtown green park. But we can't do simple things like fix a retaining wall and cut the grass. So how are we going to maintain a $40 million Elgin Street Greenway, right? So from a political perspective, yeah, there's a lot of good things happening, but there's some very simple, basic things that we got to maybe come back to basics and take care of the simple things on the street, so that the growth that we're poised to have is not being overshadowed by the reality of what's actually going on the street. And I know it's a very long political rant, Danny, but you know, and I don't want to get too off topic about that, but you know, we do have to face the realities that yes, there is growth happening and there's a lot of positive things happening, but there's also a lot of negative things that are happening that are negatively impacting and overshadowing this growth that people aren't seeing.
Well, you know, to be honest, I don't know anything about politics. I'm clueless about it all, and but I understand what you're saying. I didn't know about the stores like locking their doors, and um, I didn't know about any of that.
Well,
You
yeah,
know?
you know, like in my mom's office building, they've had people during the day come into the office and steal the ladies' purses. Like
Oh wow.
they're working at their desk, they leave the desk for 5 minutes, someone snuck into the office and stolen a purse. Those types of things are happening. Our own MP, Vivian Lapointe for Sudbury, moved her office from downtown to Bouchard Street. You know, and that office was occupied by Rick Bartolucci for a very long time. And so, what is that saying, right? Like, those are the things that we're not talking about, but that is a reality that our politicians and people that should be helping us to address these issues, even they're saying, like, even I don't want to be downtown, right? Like, when our own member of federal parliament decides to move their office out of downtown, but at the same time, oh, yeah, we believe in downtown and we got to support the downtown and we got to do this and that. But you've moved your office out of the downtown. What kind of a political statement is that making, right? And then that just shows the reality of what's actually happening. But things like the new arena and event center, that's definitely going to help to revitalize the downtown and hopefully put more faith in the downtown. But again, there's a lot of things that are going on the street that aren't being talked about, that are overshadowing all the good positive things that are happening. And I love the downtown, as do a lot of people that are invested in it. um but I, we're sort of in that weird spot, Danny, where, like, you
Mhm.
know um we're sort of on the verge of something really big happening, but it's gotten to a point where it's like people have just had enough too. So, like, how do you balance that, right? Like, you you're trying to balance growth with people that have just become apathetic, right? And just, they can only believe so much and have so much strength and courage, and then eventually it's like, I'm done.
So when it comes to community, I know you're a big community guy. Like, what motivates you? Like, what motivates you in terms of community? Like, how do you stay motivated with all that?
I just try and keep the faith, really. Starting in January, I actually started attending All Nations Church, and that for me has been a real eye-opening experience, and it's helped put a lot of things into perspective for me. And one of the things that I like about All Nations Church is that, for me, it doesn't come off as being preachy. It's more about the life skills and the experiences. Um, so there are things that are said in church that I can relate to. Like, I remember a long time ago, I was talking with Jeremy Mahood, who was our pastor at the time. I'm like, Jeremy, when I come to All Nations Church, I feel good. This feels like a Dale Carnegie motivational workshop. It's not stand up 316. John said, blah blah blah.
Right.
Like, this to me, I leave church on Sunday, and I feel motivated, and I feel a connection to the scripture and to what's being said. And he said, Derek, that's my job. My job as a preacher is not to come here and preach scripture to you. It's to help connect you to scripture and to see yourself in scripture. So every Sunday sermon, I kind of take something away from it. Like a couple of weeks ago, Pastor Brandon was talking about community and loneliness, and how 60% of humans identify as being lonely, 70% in a leadership role. And um,
Wow.
so, but we do need that sort of community around us. But what he was saying about Sunday sermons is that the Sunday sermon prepares us for the week ahead. And again, that was sort of a message that resonated with me, right? So you go at church, you're going to hear some great things, you're going to leave there motivated. What are you doing on Monday morning? Right? So that kind of sets us up for the week ahead. So for myself, like, as far as community goes, right? Like, I just I want to see a better Sudbury. I want to see a more happy Sudbury. And some of the experiences that I've had to travel to other cities and work in other cities, I sometimes go like, why can't that happen here? Right. Um,
Yeah.
so part of it is seeing those opportunities, what other cities are doing, and try and bring some of those ideas back home, and just slowly keep chipping away in perseverance, and just trying to bring those types of experiences back home. When I was working with Super Dogs, one of the things that they instilled in me was functioning at enterprise level, which at that time I wasn't quite familiar with the term. Um, but when I first started working with him, he says, Derek, you function at a certain level that we call enterprise level. And I come from a background of Fortune 500 companies. And when you send me an email communication, it's clear, it's concise. I know exactly what I have to do. When you function at enterprise level, you don't settle for mediocrity, and you get to a certain point where things become predictable. And they introduced something we called a hot plate. So it was one thing to do an event budget, but on this hot plate, it had every possible expenditure that you could think of, right down to toilet paper, for the dressing rooms. And when we hit certain sales targets, here's what our expenses are, here's what our revenues are, here's what our net revenue is. And then you're sort of looking at that hot plate budget then to make decisions to say that, does this make good financial sense to want to continue with this project? So when it comes to that enterprise level, those are some of the things that I try and put into my event planning. Um, Also looking at things more so from a patron experience, right? Like how would a patron, um, you know, experience this event? You know, and even just coming back to church, how it sort of changed my perspective. At some point, um, in the event industry, oftentimes we're critical of of our peers, right? And there was one of my peers in the event industry. I seen what they were doing, and I'm like, and I go to their events. I'm like, how do you run a festival for 50, 60,000 people serving food and not have places for people to sit, right? So great event, awesome. People are showing up. They've got food. Like 8:30 on a Sunday night, they still had lines up for people to get food at the Rib Fest. The amphitheater was packed. The band was still playing. When I was on the downtown board, we were um, when we first did Rib Fest, we said, okay, well, we were doing a Rib Fest that was kind of like a local event that would promote and support local businesses, but it wasn't really catching on. So we said, we need to make a bold step here, and if we're going to do it, we need to bring in professional barbecue teams, and we need to create an event. And I had suggested, well, why don't we do it Labor Day weekend? And I got some resistance from the board. Well, it's Labor Day, it's back to school, people are going to camp, and they're getting their kids ready. Probably not the best weekend. And Jack the Ripper said, well, it's actually the only weekend we have available. So we gave it a go. But we rolled up the sidewalk at 6 o'clock in the afternoon after a 3-day Rib Fest. So to see now that it's
Yeah.
experienced that growth to the point now where it's now attracting thousands more people, and they're going solid till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night for 3 nights in a row on a Sunday on a long weekend in September in Northern Ontario when everybody's supposed to be at camp. Church changed my perspective, and I reached out to that promoter and I said, you know what? Yeah, we've been critical, but good job, right? So part of going to church and part of being in this industry, sometimes you just gotta kind of bury the hatchet too, right? And so that's one thing that I've been trying to work on in the last little while is changing my perspectives, changing how I might interact with my peers, and taking the experiences that I've had by working with national organizations like Super Dogs, like Little Rays, and sort of working with the next generation of event planners to sort of share some of those experience and perhaps even explore opportunities for collaboration.
So, Derek, I'm going to ask you this. You've already covered quite a bit of this, but it's the daily segment, and it's a question I ask every guest. Same words, exactly the same every time. And here it is. What is one thing that you feel would make Sudbury greater? We got about 5 minutes left.
Wow.
I know.
Make Sudbury greater again. um, um, Gee, you know what? I would say maybe just a shift in perception, maybe, and just everything that I talked about in this interview, just simple changes in mindset to sort of, you know, see how we look at the world differently. And um, has a again, right, like through the church, I had an opportunity to volunteer and see what was going on at Energy Court, by volunteering to help serve a barbecue for the Elgin Street Mission. And when we want to talk about community, spend some time in a tent city and you'll get a really good sense of what community is all about, right? Like those people stick together. Um, but there are times in our community when we might shun those people. It's like, well, I don't go downtown because it's full of vagrants and beggars, and I don't want to be bothered with that, so I don't go downtown, right? But um, at the end of the day, um, those people are also human, and we all bleed red, right? So I think I would like to see a Sudbury that is more understanding and compassionate, so that it can really harness its true growth and potential.
That
So there we go, a more compassionate Sudbury.
the tent city down there. I didn't know it was there until I think yesterday or something. I drove by and I said, "What are all those tents over there?" But is that like, are they have they been given that area, or are they just kind of there?
I would probably guess to say that they're just kind of there, right?
Okay,
And but again, the big thing in that industry is like meet people where they're at, right? Um, so it is sort of a bit of a tent city. We know that the people are there. At one
yeah,
point, the safe injection site was operating there. So yeah, it's kind of important to meet people where they're at, and that, I guess, was part of the theming behind the barbecue that was held last Wednesday, right? So as as opposed to everybody going to the mission for dinner between the mission and All Nations Church, we went to where they were. We met them where they were at, and we served dinner there. Um, and that kind of felt good, right? Just to be able to do that, and to sort of see, somebody from a different per- perspective. Like at the end of the day, we're all good people on a path. Um, and yeah, but to your point, what would I like to see for Sudbury? Probably, you know, a Sudbury that's a little bit more kinder, gentler, more compassionate, and really able to seize its full potential.
good answer. Sudbury interviews, everyone, and Derek, thanks for coming on. Thanks for your expertise. I'd love to have you again. Maybe in a couple of months we can talk more about the events because this flew by. This flew
Yeah,
by.
well, event wise, this Friday, comedian Matt DeCero, he's a comedy magician, and he's performed with cruise lines, Carnival Cruise Lines, Holland of America, all over North America. And he was actually recently on Penn and Teller's Fool Us. And he'll be at Cousin Vinny's in Hammer on Friday night this week for a dinner and show. And for all the upcoming details and other events, they can visit my website, derekyoungevents.com.
Nice. Right on, man. Well, thanks for coming on today, and have a
Great.
great day.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, Danny. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks.